Protein shake, protein powder, protein powders. If you don't eat enough protein, your body will literally steal it from your muscles, your hair, and even your organs just to survive. Last time in this food lecture series, we did a quick breakdown of what is inside food, and we talked a little bit about what are macros and micros. So go check that video out if you haven't already. And in this video, we're gonna do a deep dive into protein, my favorite macro and probably the most important one. It helps you build muscle, stay lean, and pretty much is the raw materials for your entire body. So let's get into it. If you recall from part 1 in the food lecture series, proteins are made up of these small little strings called amino acids. And amino acids are these chains of compounds. And you can think of these little chains like the Lego blocks and raw materials that will help build out your entire body. From your muscles, your hair, your organs, and pretty much everything else in your body. How does your body do that? Well, whenever you eat something and it gets broken down mechanically with your teeth, it gets passed down to your stomach, and that is kind of where the process begins. Your stomach uses hydrochloric acid to break down these proteins chemically instead of mechanically. And as this hydrochloric acid is unfolding those protein chains, an enzyme called pepsin, not Pepsi, pepsin, separates them into smaller chains, small enough to be able to be passed through down into your small intestine. Once these chains have been broken down and they are in your small intestine, a different enzyme called pancreatic enzymes breaks them down into individual chains, individual amino acids. And your small intestine will be sending them over to your bloodstream. And your bloodstream is pretty much just a highway, right, of different, instead of cars in there, you got different nutrients and sugars and waters going through them. And once the amino acids get into the bloodstream, they'll be delivered anywhere in your body, whether it's your head, your muscles, or anywhere else. You see, there are a total of 20 amino acids, but only 9 of them are required to you from your diet. This is because the other 11 can be kind of synthesized by your body using the original 9 that you're taking in. Your body also just has different mechanisms in place to create those 11 amino acids. Now, if you ask me, which nobody has, in my opinion, leucine is the most important of the amino acids. This is because it's the main amino acid related to muscle protein synthesis. It's literally what builds your muscles. And another very important thing that leucine does is that it regulates the blood in your sugar. So essentially, it sends that extra sugar and gets rid of it, which is great for diabetics. So, okay, now that we got the boring chemistry out of the way, let's create a tiered list of the different protein sources so that you can actually use some of the information you're getting out of this video. Hello tier chart. So let us begin by creating the S tier of protein sources. Now, the king of protein has always been known as the mighty egg. Yes, you heard that right. Eggs are considered the golden standard of a protein source, since they have all of the amino acids that your body needs, making them perfect for pretty much anyone, and high bioavailability. Bioavailability basically means that your body doesn't have to work too hard to break that protein chemically down into the amino acids, so it's great for that. In the S tier, we also got things like whey protein, which is one of the fastest absorbing sources of protein. This is why your fitness coaches or personal trainers are probably telling you to use whey, because right after a workout, when your body's starved for protein the most and your muscle fibers are broken and your body needs to repair itself, that is where whey comes in and is a perfect source, because your body's able to break that down super fast. It has all the specific amino acids like leucine that it needs to be able to create muscle protein synthesis, and it ships them over pretty quickly so your body can recover efficiently. We also have casein in S tier. This is basically the protein in milk. It's a little bit slower than whey, so it's good if you're about to go to sleep and you take a warm glass of milk. It'll help out with providing with amino acids throughout your sleep, so your body has a consistent source of these raw materials. And another S tier is lean beef. This is grass-fed beef, stuff that is organic, and it's great because, again, it's a full source of protein. It's a complete protein source. It has all the essential amino acids. It has iron to help with your bloodstream, but don't eat too much of that because it gets you full and then you won't be able to eat other stuff that you need just as much unless you're Joe Rogan or Liver King, in which case just eat lean beef all the time. Joey Tetragon. At tier A, we got our favorite meats. We got chicken breast, we got fish, turkey breast, and Greek yogurt. And for the vegans out there, we finally have a great vegan protein source, and that is soy products. Things like tofu and edamame can also act like complete protein sources, and they provide other benefits like fiber and essential minerals to keep you going. In B tier, we start to kind of get food sources that are not meant to really be protein, but hey, they got enough amino acids for me to put them down here. And that is things like lentils, beans, cottage cheese, and nuts and seeds. Again, although these are great sources for things like carbohydrates and different minerals, they're not the optimal sources for protein. You should really be focusing on those S and A tier when eating for protein. I really don't want to do C tier, so I'm just gonna say pretty much most carbs like grains and vegetables. I would put them here. Again, they're great forms of carbs, but when it comes to protein, they don't have enough amino acids to satisfy your protein intake. Do we have to go through tiers D and E, or can I just skip to F? Great, let's skip to F. F is pretty much any processed food. We did talk about how meat is a great source of protein, but when that meat is processed, it's heated up, it's kind of mixed around, a lot of these amino acids get broken down by the machines that are used to process this food. This means that your body does not actually get to use those amino acids. They just taste kind of great and they might have some crappy protein. Definitely not a complete source of amino acids. Alright, so now that we've kind of talked about what kinds of food actually have protein, we should probably talk about how much protein you should have. And to do that, we're going to be talking to our friend Joe. Professor OJ, would you like to give us an explanation of Joe and kind of how much protein he needs based on different stages of his life? Hello. Let's examine Joe's life. He weighs about 200 pounds. Yes, he's a big boy. And the thing about Joe is that he works at a desk job. He's a programmer and he doesn't really get much exercise other than walking to the fridge and then back to his desk. For people like Joe, who are not really active and they don't really have any sort of manually or physically demanding jobs, they don't really need any more than half a gram of protein per pound of body fat. For Joe's case, that would be 200 times 0.5, which gives us 100 grams of protein. Now let's say that Joe decides to start going to the gym about 4 to 5 times a week. He does a typical bro split and ends up looking like this. With the Dorito back, he's got a Disney princess waist, and he's still sitting at 200 pounds because all that fat, he really just changed that weight into muscle. We're not gonna get too much into that. But now he's trying to reevaluate how much protein he should be eating. And the answer to that is about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That means 200 times 0.8, which is about 160 grams of protein. Now, you might be asking, well, what is the extra 60 grams of protein going to? And the answer to that is his body will actually use it to create the muscles and make him look like this instead of what he looked like before with the beer belly. And yes, 60 grams of protein, which is pretty much just one protein shake per day, is enough to make a difference and is enough to start building muscle and trigger muscle protein synthesis. Now, let's say that Joe decides to make a career transfer and he's no longer working at his desk job. All of a sudden, he decides to become an all-star NBA player. And yes, Joe probably needs a little bit more protein now, because if you look at this, his waist is just as small, his chest has gone massive, so he's been doing a lot of pecs and bench press and all that kind of jazz, and his legs have also grown quite a bit. So how much is he eating currently to maintain this kind of physique, given that he's also working out and pretty much being a performance athlete on a day-to-day basis? The answer to that is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And in Joe's case, that's about 200 grams to about 220. I just want to give you guys a side note. Like, this is where the eat 5 times a day comes from in the bodybuilding community. The reason for that is because your body cannot synthesize any more than 30 grams of protein per sitting, which means that if you were to break 150 grams to 30 gram servings, that would yield 5 different meals/snacks. And those can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then 2 protein shakes. Now, if you eat anything beyond those numbers that we just talked about, you can do the math for yourself. Anything extra, and it'll just be converted to glucose and literally be no different than carbohydrates. Now, before we move on to the lessons learned, I should probably talk a little bit about protein powders and kind of how to use them properly and how not to use them. You see, protein powder is great because it helps you get that extra few grams of protein that your body needs. But protein powder is considered a supplement, and you should treat it like a supplement, meaning it should not be your primary source of protein. In fact, more than half should be coming from whole sources, things like eggs, meats, fish, beans, and however many grams of protein you're missing from your target, that's when protein powder comes in, and that is when it's being used properly. If you over rely on protein powder, you're probably going to not get as many minerals and vitamins that we're going to talk in a different video, but also you're probably not going to get the essential amino acids and a complete amino acid profile. Now, back to Professor OJ to explain to you guys about some of the myths. There's two myths that I wanted to point out here. And the first one is that kidney stones are, and the truth of the matter is your kidneys are able to handle up to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight of protein. And that is assuming that you have healthy kidneys and no pre-existing conditions. If one of those applies to you and you're not drinking enough water or you have pre-existing kidney conditions, you might want to chat with your doctor to figure out what is the recommended daily amount of protein you should be having. The second myth is that whey is not steroids. Enough said. Anyway, let's move on to the lessons learned and key takeaways that you can take from this video. First of all, it is my belief that most people are actually not eating enough protein. And that's because we're recommended such a small number, and with the growth of social media, a lot of people have been going to the gym and they need just more than what they've been recommended online without any kind of information about their day-to-day life or their biometrics. And the best way to kind of know how much you're eating is to essentially track it. If you track it, you know how much you're eating, how much more you need. And I've actually built an app called Avro. This is the logo, and the link is down in the descriptions, where you can actually keep track of all that, and it'll actually tell you how you're doing throughout the week. So you should probably start tracking, and you'll find that if you're not being intentional with your diet, you're probably not getting enough protein. Most people don't eat 200 or even 150 grams of protein by accident. It has to be something that's intentional. The second takeaway is not all protein is created equally. Make sure that you get high quality protein sources like the eggs, meats, beans that we talked about, and try to stay away from some of the processed meats. Maybe it's fine to have it once a week, once every 2 weeks, but it should definitely not be your primary protein source. Treat it like a cheat meal because it's really just that, a cheat. It doesn't have any good amino acids in them. And lastly, the most important metric is consistency. You should try to hover around the same protein intake over a long time. And that is because it provides your body with a reliable source of protein. You see, your body likes routines. And when you're eating 100 grams one day, 200 the other day, 40 grams the next day, your body is just going into overdrive, trying to figure out how do we allocate this protein. Is there going to be enough protein for tomorrow? So the best thing you can do is stay consistent and provide your body with the fuel that it needs to repair itself. If you've made it to the end of the video, please drop a like, subscribe down below, and tell me what you think about this setup that I've got going on. This is only my second video, so it would mean a lot for me to get some feedback on the comments. And till next time, bye bye.